I am really thrilled today to be with and talking to Dr. Diana Beresford-Kroeger. Dr. Kroeger is a world-recognized author, medical biochemist, and botanist. She uses a unique combination of Western scientific knowledge with traditional concepts of the ancient Celtic world to create fresh ideas to address the modern effects of climate change. Her bio plan, which you're going to hear about, is an ambitious plan encouraging ordinary people like you and me to develop a new relationship with nature and to join together to replant the global forest. Dr. Kroeger has also received a very prestigious award given also to Dr. Kofi Annan, the Doctor of Laws degree for her work on climate change. And let's start off, if you will, by telling us about yourself and what you do, the work you do.
Well, I have to gasbag a little bit about my childhood. I'm a mongrel, a genuine Irish mongrel, aristocratic mongrel on my mother's side and on my father's side. My father's crowd are all related to the royal family and Princess Di. And on my mother's side, I am the last member of the Kings of Munster, and they're the kings of the south of Ireland. And I came by it by an accident. My family was totally destroyed when I was 12. So I was orphaned at 12. And because of primogeniture, which you probably know a little bit about, Jane, I got nothing except my name. So I was...
Why don't you explain to people what primogeniture is?
Primogeniture is, it's a lovely situation in the English world, where if you happen to be a man, you hold inheritance of estates and properties and monies. And if you're a woman, you're a breeding system for that system, for continuing. And I have very good bloodlines, and I was expected to breed for the English system, and I didn't. I went into science to the great disappointment of everybody in my family.
So just to go back for a second, why your family was destroyed, you said?
Well, in a car crash, everybody.
Oh my gosh,
I'm
so
just
sorry.
wiped out. Yeah, just wiped out, bang, just
What
like
a terrible thing for a young person to go through.
Yes, and then it got worse. As an orphan in Ireland, I was supposed to have been put into the Magdalen Laundry, which is one of the residential schools, and it is for unwed mothers and for orphans, and I was supposed to wash the clothes of the city, of the people of Cork, ad nauseum, until I was a young girl, until I was a young woman. And what happened is that I was brought in front of the courts, and my father's family are called Beresfords, and that's Lord Beresford, and the judge was afraid to put me into the laundry, Sundayswell Laundry. He was terrified that I'd be put in there. He would lose his job because they were MPs in England. He was in the House of Lords. And we're not talking the best of people here now, my crowd, the Beresford. We're not talking, the greatest people on earth here. So indeed it would have happened. And so I was given into the holding of a bachelor uncle who was a very famous athlete, and he had never married, and he had a house like this full of books, like thousands of books. So I lived in a puddle of books. And he would read to me one evening in theatre, poetry, physics, Teilhard de Chardin, on one side of the fire, and I'd read on the other side of the fire. That's the beginning of my education. And then my mother's family, because I was the last member of and my title would be O'Donoghue Beara, would be in Gaelic. Mm-hmm. And my mother's family decided that I had to be given the last provenance of the Kings of Munster. And the last provenance was under the Brehon laws. And the Brehon laws are pre-Magna Carta. And in Brehon, women are important, not primogeniture. The inheritance was given to women. So 20 odd women in the Valley of Lachines, every single summer, I was brought down and taught about all of the druids, all of the cures, all of the fish auguries. I can run telepathy on people. I can run telepathic threads on people. I was taught how to do that. And the laws of the trees. The laws of the trees, the language we are speaking right now, is based on the Ogham script, and it was the first true script of Europe. And each letter of the alphabet represents a tree. On Alm is the Scots pine. On Ve is the beech. And it goes on and on down through, it's just like Sanskrit. And I was taught all of the things of the triad of the Gaelic world, of the triad of body, mind and soul. We look after body, but we have to look after our minds. We have to respect one another in coolness and quietness and our souls. So I was taught all of those things. And by the time I was 15, then I was cracking on in education and went into all. I was told that I would be the last child of the ancient Gaelic world. And I didn't really believe them. I thought there's got to be loads of people like me. And I was told to bring this as a sacred trust into the world of now, because the world of now in the Western world, and they were talking about America, and that I had to bring it here because the time of now it's needed. Great wisdom is needed amongst people now to be able to deal with what we have, the burden of what we have right now upon us. And I've been true to that. And I knew, I was told, my fishy, which would be a prophet, told me I would meet you. We are sisters in the ancient world, you and I. I've just met a sister, and I know I have. I know I have. So this is where we start. This is where we start. And the eighth fire will happen. So anyway, what I did is I got educated as much as I could. So what I have done in my world of science, I made all of the synthetic blood, and it's non-typing blood, for tissue transplanting all over the world. So you need any tissue, anything. I made the blood for tissue non-transplanting. And because I was a woman, they all expected a man to do it. So I used to throw them out of the lab. I did all kinds of work like that in medicine, and that is my background. But before that, in my master's degree, what I did one day, my Uncle Pat said to me, and I had been very hungry as a young child. He said to me, he said, Diana, if the temperature changes up by 1 degree centigrade, the bread baskets of the world won't work. And believe me, I had been hungry. So I always measure my life by a skull loaf. That's an Irish loaf. How far have I travelled from the skull loaf, to be where I am? And I haven't travelled very far. So he said that to me, and it was something that really impressed me as a child. I thought, if that means it goes 2 degrees, people will starve. I knew what starving was about. And I thought, no, I'm not going to leave that happen. So then I continued in all of these areas. So I've organic chemistry, nuclear chemistry, medical botany, biochemistry, medical biochemistry, and the whole blinking bang, together with all of my important heart research. But the climate change is oxidation reduction, is the basis of all of that. Now, let me bore you a little bit. If you're breathing, like right now, I'm not talking about corpses, I'm talking about breathing individuals like Jane and I. If you're breathing, she is breathing her oxygen, I am breathing my oxygen into hemoglobin, that's called blood, it's quantum mechanics. She's doing it, I'm doing it. And guess what? A tree does it. A tree takes carbon out of the atmosphere, smashes it in half, carbon goes into the body of the tree and oxygen goes into the air. We need the oxygen. We have to have the oxygen, and that's called sequestration. That is what a forest does for you every day. It farms the sun. It takes the photons out of the air, farming the sun. And we didn't know until recently. And we did not know that the forests also protect the great oceans of the world. The forest produces humic acid from the leaves. Every gardener knows that. It smells, so we all know it because it's smelly. Goes on the ground, into the waterway, into the ocean, and it chelates, it pulls iron out of the land, and the iron feeds the ocean. Without trees, we won't have whales. Without trees, we won't have porpoises. Without trees, we won't have my most favourite animal in the whole earth, which is the otter. I love my otteries, so don't dare touch my otteries because I really like them. So the forest feeds the oceans. So the Aboriginal people were right. It's all connected. We were right. It's all connected. The ancient worlds were all right. They knew all about it. They knew things holistically. And in medicine now, we're going back to holistic thinking. We're going back to not looking at the hair of one person's head. We're going back to the unity of the body, the unity of how the body functions. So now we're in a new wave of thinking for the planet because the whole planet is our home. Do you know that on this whole planet we do not have a protection for our trees? We do not have a seed area for our trees where all the tree species are catalogued, and I would like to have a genome system going where the haploid representative of the tree, each tree all over the world, that haploid representative is cloning.
What's a haploid?
A haploid is like your egg part, and for a man it's your sperm part.
I see, okay.
And when you have an egg and when you have a sperm, they're tightly packed together. So you've got very, very good protein. You know, it's protein that will last a long time. The female part of the tree or the male part of the tree, and you take a tiny amount of it, like stem cells, and you can have the whole forest in a box. You keep that forest in a box, just like New Zealand and Australia, keep it in a box at minus 40 degrees, and then you can pluck it out. If Australia had had this a month ago, they would have not lost all their genera, they would have not lost all of their species. You take one out and you plant them and you grow it. It will cost about $50 million to put something together. I've already started it. I have all the master plans done for it, all the collecting plans, the sterile plans, everything done for that. All I need is the money. And it'll come. I know it's going to come. I know that. I've cloned the Cryptomeria japonica, that's your redwoods. I've taken the best of the best of the best redwoods in California. And by God, I found them. There is one redwood platform that is 55 feet in full circumference, a mighty body. That's been cloned, and I've cloned the special ones of those. So now all we have to do is to put them all together, have it in perpetuity, not for a private firm, in perpetuity. You own it, I own it, you own it. This is our inheritance from 40 million years, because they're 40 million years and making all of these trees. So we do that, we protect our forests. Who says there's no work in the future? You just do this. I mean, they're talking about all of the oil fields and stuff. Take them out of the oil fields and get people to do this. We need it, we have to have it. We have to have it for a functional planet. So it's very simple, just do it.
I have always thought, forests are half of where our oxygen comes from. The other half is the ocean. Because of phytoplankton,
Yeah.
photoplankton. Mm-hmm. So where does that fit in then?
Yeah, but come here now, the oceans is a 60% for the forest, and then 40% for the oceans. But the oceans, if you have drought on the land, it means there's no iron going into the oceans. And for the great columns on the ocean, which we have here in California, enormous 200-metre columns of the
Of
ocean.
seafood.
Prococalus, Camosiphonalis, Nosticalis, all of these species.
They're like sea
layered.
trees.
Yeah,
Like trees underwater.
They're trees, and they grow a foot a day. And they're enormous things, but they won't grow so well when you have drought on the land. So there's the connection, and if they don't grow well, they won't be producing oxygen.
And then also the fossil fuel, part of it is going up into the air, but also there's the acidification of the ocean.
Yes.
Because of the pollution, and that affects phytoplankton, and
Yes.
it's reducing its ability. So it's not just the ocean, the forests that are at risk of depriving us. When the forests are damaged, less oxygen. The oceans are we're getting less oxygen because of the ocean too.
Yeah. And we have the diatoms and desmids here. Everything is affected. The silication aspect of the diatoms and desmids are right there. Everything is being affected. So I think the bioplan is the answer. The technological aspect of it is get a shovel, plant a tree, start planting acorns, get the species in, native to native. I've done a documentary on this, and in the documentary, it took me a year to put an app together, which I wrote a book underneath for that app. Actually, that's number 9 books, a book underneath that. And in the app, it's calloftheforest.ca. It's keyed into every aspect, every part of North America, geo-positioned into every part, and it's keyed into medicine.
Okay, what's it called again?
Calloftheforest.ca.
Calloftheforest.ca.
Yeah.
And that's where you will get all the information about what to plant,
Yep.
where.
Yep.
Okay, so I'm going to play devil's advocate. I'm sorry.
That's all right. We're two devils here being
The scientists tell us we have a decade to cut our fossil fuel emissions in half. Trees, especially oak, because I'm a tree whore, forgive me my language, but I love trees more than anything.
Me too.
More than anything.
Yeah.
Oak trees in particular.
Yeah, live oaks.
They take so long to grow. So planting all the trees in the world, but they take so long. So
they'll grow fast.
oaks don't grow fast.
Oh, but they do. Faster than you realize.
And
Yes,
redwood?
They do. Yes, they do. Yes, they do. Given a chance, yes, they do. And if you have oaks and if you have redwoods growing, and if you mulch them, you will double their growth. So no, I did all those experiments. I've got a huge arboretum of all kinds of rare things up in Canada. Huge things, all the Aboriginal species, everything. I've got a Noah's Ark up there because just to keep them for this cloning stuff. You start mulching things, no, they'll double their growth.
Well, when I was younger and and I planted oaks, I would mulch them, and they did take a long time. But I have to say, we call it the scissor effect. This is the solar panels and the windmills and the newly planted trees and the oaks and the redwoods, the blue oaks and all those things. That's one blade of the scissor, and the other blade is stopping fossil fuels. We have to do both at once because we can plant all those trees we want, but if they're still drilling and emitting fossil fuel emissions in the air.
And hydrogen sulfide and all these other bad things into the air. Yeah. Now, see, this is where you come in. I mean, I've been like a rabbit ploughing away down my rabbit hole. I've got all my books, and they're all peer-reviewed books too from the University of Michigan. My work is all peer-reviewed. It's peer-reviewed through Harvard. So I've suffered like hell to get all of them out. They are there, right? Mm-hmm. So what we want is people.
We're doing it. You were going to say.
That's all. That's all. That is all.
It's what's missing. And that's why we're doing fire drills.
That's it.
Because we need people to stop the fossil fuels so that the doctor can make sure that all the trees are planted in time.
Yeah, that's all. you're doing this. You're fantastic. Like, you could plod along and do all of this. I mean, I'm just down my rabbit hole doing all my research, writing these blinking books. And really, believe you me, they've been tough to get them.
But it's your Celtic genome
I know.
that allows you
I
to know this.
Yes.
Because the Celts were they were the last
Yes.
to remain in touch with the earth in that way. Their
Yes.
whole spirits were in touch with the earth.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they have on Tuatha Dé Danann, and they have the people on Tír na nÓg. The Tír na nÓg is North America. And I've addressed all the medicine men of North America, and their medical cures are almost the same as the Celtic cures.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I could go on and on about
Oh,
this.
I wish you would.
God bless us and save us, girl. There's extraordinary stuff. In old Ireland at the time of Christ, we had An Tig na Lís, which in Teach in Gaelic is the house of perspiration. Same as the sweat lodges. Same thing. They did C-sections around the time of Christ. The women were proper doctors, 17 years a making. And they had their 4 interns with them, and the Brehon laws dedicated, protected copyright for every cow a calf, copyright. They dictated the hospitals, the size of the hospitals, the patients. I mean, it just goes on, and I've got that written. I know that material. So yeah, it's the Celtic, and it's me having such a tough life as a child.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't take no for an answer.
Yeah.
I mean, that's, maybe you and I are just hopeless. I mean, we are doing the same thing. You get the crowds in, and I'll talk to them.
And you, yes,
And we have
exactly.
to ignore the politicians. Like, just
Totally.
pretend they're not there.
Yeah, because there's a few women,
there's
though.
a few good ones, okay,
Yeah.
all right. But just ignore them. Like, I can get very upset about the politicians. So I pretend they don't exist.
Yeah, this
So
is good.
That's a very good way. That's my way of dealing with it.
Yeah.
They go invisible. Like, quack on, you go invisible. In the meantime, we get the people together, because it's the people make the planet.
Yeah. You're from Ontario, and you've talked, because we talked a few minutes before we got together on this couch about the importance of the boreal forests.
Oh, yes.
And this mine that was going to go in northern Alberta, this huge mine that was going to just wipe out the boreal forests.
Yeah.
And explain why that's so important. What is it about that?
It's the workhorse of the planet. In the north of the planet, it's like a monk's tonsure. It's like a crown on the whole of the planet. And all of the species up there are all really very unusual, because they take a slight slant from the sun. They can grow with very reduced sun. They grow on lean and mean ground. They produce all kinds of species up there that we can never replace, but it oxygenates the planet. And what it also does is it puts aerosols into the air, and these are all kinds of compounds that are very important for arterial tissue, very important for circulation. There's a thing in the spring when men feel their oats and women feel their oats. It's because of the boreal. It's like Viagra coming out of there. And it's the same thing, really. It's the same kind of compounds. But it keeps the planet working. It keeps the air oxygenated. It keeps the air sterile and clean. And that's why we're here today.
And the peatland up there, too.
Yeah.
Do peatland and boreal forest, do they go together?
They do go together. And the peatland, I call it a phenolic grave. And what the boreal forest does, it doesn't really compost very well. It just builds and it builds and it builds and it builds. And it builds into the water areas too. So there's a huge amount of uncomposted carbon up there, a vast amount in storage. It's like carbon vaulted for the planet, for the future. And it's up in the boreal. And that's there, and it's going down into the rivers, and it goes down into the lakes. And we daren't leave that get warmer, because if we get that warmer, then the carbon dioxide will go vast quantities into the air. No. So I'm taking a no on that one, because we're going to look after the rest of the planet. Ordinary people like Jane and me, we're going to be doing this. And while I'm about it, I am going to give you an Irish blessing. This is a blessing from the ancient world of Ireland. And what it is considered to be temple words from before the time of Christ. And what it is, I'm saying to you and to all of you, beg dialat. May it be that God is walking with you. Beg tu mio, may you be well alive. Agus gnairitu, and may you rise like yeast within your body with life. And all of us need that, because we're going to succeed. Remember, the 8th fire is going to happen.
Thank you so much. You know, sometimes when you feel a soul connection with someone, you can't help but cry. And you make me cry. Thank you so much. If you want to stay connected to Fire Drill Friday, text Jane at 877-877. Thank you so much for watching.